So in this video, we are talking about how quickly can you pick up social skills after you missed out or somehow just didn't pick it up after a good amount of time. When I'm talking about social skills, I'm talking about social cues, body language, confidence, self-esteem, when you talk or not talk in a conversation. When you pick up people's little emotional subtle changes, how do you react to them? How do you handle yourself? All those things I consider social skills. So first, I'm going to break this down by different social skill levels, then by the timeline itself, because we all start in different places with different backgrounds, different needs, and different level of social skills. And depending on where you are right now and where you want to get to, that will determine your timeline overall. So that's why I'm going to go over the different levels first. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So first, right now, let's talk about the 4 different stages of social skills. The first one is where you're a complete beginner. This one is where you have no idea how to talk to people, you can't make eye contact, you kind of struggle with daily tasks because whenever you go outside, you have to interact with people, and it kind of gets you really anxious, really nervous. So you don't really want to feel that pressure. You have no idea how to interact with the society around you. You don't know how to start, carry, or end a conversation in any type of social settings, and sometimes even with your own family members. Now, the second one we're talking about is a novice. This one is you can really talk to people one-on-one, but you always feel that you're somehow an extra person, that you are a burden to the group. It really feels hard for you to fit in because you're constantly doubting and trying to get some kind of validation that people actually want you to be part of the group. So you can speak to people fine, but you have trouble speaking in groups and you're constantly distancing yourself from different friendships because you don't really quite know what exactly is the right social skills to apply to different situations and what is the right action to do in those situations. Now we're on to intermediate. This one is where you have no problems talking to men or women one-on-one in group settings. You can freely express who you are as a person and your opinions. You're not afraid, and you can kind of bond with people pretty well, and even with strangers. And I would say most people, if they get to this stage, they'll feel pretty good. This is the stage that they actually are trying to aim for, and they'd be pretty satisfied with it. And now the last stage, this is the advanced stage, where it's really about leadership. Because whenever you are at a different social group, there is always a leader, and a leader provides a direction for the group. You are there, you take care of the people, but you also find a destination for them to go. And this becomes pretty much your group. And the people that are in your group are following you because they want to follow you. So here you really learn how to influence, motivate individuals, and be able to hopefully provide your group with a cooler experience in life. Now, the reason that there are different stages is that in each stage, we're actually focusing on different skill sets that are required for you to move on to the next stage. So essentially, each stage builds on top of the other one, and without the solid foundation you have from the previous stage, you will not be able to progress through the social progression ladder, whatever you want to call it. So for the first level of beginner, this is where we're really focusing on self-esteem and learning how to manage your own emotions. Because when we're away from social groups for a very long time, it's really hard to get a rough gauge for where you are. We all need human interactions, but at the same time, it's really hard for us to feel like we're actually part of the society because we have been by ourselves for such a long time. So here we're really learning to cultivate that self-confidence, who we are as a person, our identity, and all the little negative thoughts are inside our heads so that we are not constantly anxious when we approach someone, and we're not feeling like we are the extra person or we're a burden to the people around us, and constantly doubting ourselves. So a lot of the beginner part is actually inner work so that you can actually go and talk to someone and be able to have conversations without you holding your own self back. Now in the novice stage, this is where you're actually starting to learn the interactions between you and other people with like social skills, social cues, body language, self-esteem, and really learning to talk to people on a one-on-one basis. Because when you're talking to people on a smaller scale and you can master talking to one-on-one individuals, then once you have that, you can actually expand to talking to multiple people at once. But in this stage, you're really learning how to interact with people after you have mastered your relationship with yourself in the beginner level. So in this small scale, you're really learning to pick up how do you read facial expressions, how exactly do you interact and respond to each different situations they are at, and how do you express your own opinions, how do you talk to people, and how do you actually fortify your boundaries so that you can gradually open up more and more to the people around you. Now in the intermediate stage, this is where things actually get a little more complex because you're talking to a group of people. And in a group conversation, you are not just focusing on one individual, but there are maybe 3 or 4 or 5 other different individuals around the group, and everyone is an individual person. And you have to interact or take into account what everyone might or might not be thinking. And if you are already feeling overwhelmed by like one person, that's why you don't want to jump into a group, because it's so nerve-wracking, and sometimes we feel like, oh, dang man, this whole group of people are just judging me and I can't even just be myself if I wanted to talk or have something to say. And it's very nerve-wracking. So that's why you have to have like a very solid foundation progressing up. But in group conversation, this is where you learn about things like how do you make a good group first introduction? How can you go about joining a group where they are already kind of close to each other and you want to become part of that group? How do you go about interacting with people in such a way that it gets you invited to different events more? What exactly are the unspoken social rules when you're interacting with everyone else that you should not violate? And also, how can you like say things about yourself, have your own opinions, so that you don't feel like a pushover in the group or just constantly nodding to everyone, because you are your own person too. And you have your own thoughts, and people respect people with their own thoughts. But how can you do that in a way that is not offensive to other people? Now the last stage is the advanced stage. This is where you learn about things like leadership. Because to really lead a group well, you have to really understand the people around you. What exactly motivates them? How can you construct this group in such a way that people actually want to be part of your group? How can you talk to people and then have people actually respond to you? And being a good leader, you're taking care of people around in the group, and people want to be part of that group, and they want to spend more time with you and building wonderful relationships. Now let's talk about timeline. The things I'm mentioning here, this is always more of an estimate because everyone is different. Different backgrounds, different starting place, and it might take you a different pace to move past different barriers, because some people might be practicing this every single day. Some people might do this twice a week. So there is not really a set time for an individual to progress really quickly. It depends on the amount of effort you put in and how frequently you are trying to break that barrier. All those factors determine how fast you move through each stage. Moving from beginner to novice, in my opinion, this is probably the one that will take the most amount of time, because a lot of the things that's going on inside is where you have the most amount of bad habits that you have to really correct. But after you get past this stage, then the next two stages will take much less time in comparison to this one, but it'll be a different type of growth, different kind of challenge and problems that you will develop over time. But for beginner to novice, this can take anywhere from 6 months to maybe even 5-6 years, because we all come from a different standpoint and different background. Like, what if you went through something terrible in your childhood and you really need some time to recover from that? And a lot of that anxiety can stem from feeling very insecure when you're in different situations, and you have to really work through each individual aspect of that part of you when you feel socially anxious, so you can get back to a stage where you feel pretty confident about yourself. You're not doubting everything that you do, and you don't feel like you're constantly on the outside. That inner work, this will take probably the most amount of time. But once you get past this stage, as like high and hard it might feel, everything will get much smoother from that point on, in my opinion. Now, moving from novice to intermediate, this is where you're learning much about the one-on-one individual human interactions. I feel like picking up these type of skills are actually much simpler and much quicker, because if you can really see an example and imitate it, picking up the small different things and see how other people are interacting with you and between each individual interactions, we can imitate that really quickly. It's kind of like if you just want to learn a new language, the best way is to force yourself and to go to a different country with that everyone's speaking that language, and being immersed in that environment will get you there much quicker. However, if you're feeling scared already, this is because you haven't jumped from the beginner to novice stage. Like, you have to go through that so you have some degree of self-confidence, so you can land in this stage and you can constantly push yourself to grow much faster. That's when the foundation has to be there, so you have something to fall back on in case you like mess up or something. And getting to that basic stage to feel pretty good, I would say it probably wouldn't take longer than maybe 1 to 2 years. And if you're really focused, it might take even shorter. But being in this stage, it will move much faster. Now, moving from intermediate to advanced, this is actually where you are transitioning from taking care of yourself and talking to other people to actually taking care of other people. So as a leader, you're actually holding on to more responsibility for the group, because you don't want to lead your group off a cliff. It's kind of like you are the driver inside a car, and you're gonna take the group somewhere, so you want to lead them somewhere nice. And you have to understand that everyone has different needs. And to get through this process of becoming an exceptional leader might take even 5, 6 something years, or your whole lifetime. But in order to get to that initial stage where you are in that advanced level, I'll say maybe 1 to 2 years to really master the basics, and so that you can progress later on. So if you really look at this whole timeline, the most amount of focus that you should have, is in the very front, the beginner to novice stage, where your inner work is really set on a solid level, so that the progression, everything later on, can build on top of that. But that is roughly my take on how quickly can you pick up social skills inside a particular time frame. And if there are things that I miss or you have questions about, you can go ahead and just comment it, because I'm pretty sure this doesn't cover everything and people will have questions. But my experience is that everything here is perfectly learnable, because social skills is a skill, and as long as you're alive, you can change. And a lot of these things are more like small habits, and if you can learn to recognize different things and be able to come before other people having a correct view of yourself and of others. That is where we want to be when we interact with other people. So everything is learnable. So, and stay strong, stay healthy. That's pretty much what I want to talk about. And I'll talk to you guys next time. And if you guys like this video, you can go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and that's it.